Hello, welcome to Hummingbird Haven's YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about support and family education, PTSD and its impact on the family as a whole. As many of you know, PTSD especially is prevalent in our military veterans who have served, who have been deployed in combat in the military, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Beirut is where my husband was when he came into contact with combat. And as a result, ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder. One person, my name is Kimberly Habib. Let me get that out the way. My name is Kimberly Habib, and I am the founder and CEO of Hummingbird Haven. And we empower veterans and their family members with the ability to maneuver through any situation. We provide them access to wraparound services, group and one-on-one therapy, and life coaching, as well as a holistic approach to healing through yoga and meditation. So the topic today is PTSD, which is one person who has been diagnosed with PTSD may look very different from another with the same disorder. PTSD can come in many forms. It can be anxiety. It can be a very mind-altering event. If I could share my screen with you and show you what a brain looks like when it has been affected by PTSD. I don't want to share you this screen. What a brain looks like when it's affected by PTSD. Hopefully you can see that. So as you can see, the brain on the left is very red, and it has been affected by PTSD. The brain on the right is no PTSD. So when something happens that triggers the veteran's brain, what happens is it's like a huge adrenaline rush that comes upon them, and they are now dealing with not knowing how to react. They're dealing with anxiety. They may be having a panic attack. They may be overreacting to the situation. Some people have shared with me that their loved one have actually gone into fight or flight mode, which means a person cut them off in line, and now they're sitting there cussing this person out at the top of their lungs, when most people would have just said, "Excuse me, ma'am, sir, there's a line back here." For them, it's over the top, and not always, and can sometimes be embarrassing just to actually put it out there. PTSD not only happens in combat veterans, it also happens with the natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, or both, for both victims and rescue workers. And then you have man-made disasters. Man-made disasters, such as Oklahoma City bombing, the 9/11 for victims as well as rescue workers, sexual assault or other violent crimes, domestic violence, school shootings, physical and or sexual abuse, fleeing violence in one's home, such as especially for immigrants, or torture. All of these can cause PTSD. Hummingbird Haven's focus is on PTSD in the veteran, as well as STSD, was a secondary trauma in the spouse or family member. People may experience the event in a variety of ways. They may have distressing dreams or nightmares of the event. I can share that my husband, he does have nightmares. Um, and the first nightmare he had when we got together, I went to wake him up. And of course, we know sometimes that's not a good thing to do. However, it was a violent nightmare, and whether he was kicking or and that kind of, and having tremors, of course the end result is going to be someone getting hurt. So I reached over to wake him up, and he went to bite down on my bottom lip. Gratefully, I pulled it back before he was able to bite down. This right here is from a car accident. Before he was able to bite down. And then when he did finally wake up, we had a conversation about what happened, what helped you to get through when you were dealing with this before we met. And he said, truthfully, it was something he had never dealt with. No, and no one had ever told him he needed to deal with it. However, there were some family members who told him he was different. And in their head, they believe it's not me who's different, it's you who's different. But anyway, keep on that story about the nightmares. He's mentioned to me that cannabis helped him in the past, and I said, well, we better go get some cannabis, because either you're going to get hurt or I'm going to get hurt, and we don't want either. So it is okay to understand what helps your partner. And now that we have more and more medicinal places out here where they can get the type of whether it's cannabis or whatever they choose to help them, support them in that, because it's important. And then he also had people at the VA provide him with a medication to help alter his nightmares. Truthfully, made it worse. So not everything is for everybody. Just make sure you consult your doctor or your medical dispensary intelligencer, I'll call them. Sometimes they may feel very uncomfortable when confronted with a reminder of the event. An example of that would be a war movie. Surprisingly enough, my husband has no problem with war movies. He can watch them. He has no problem with war games. He can play them. But for some of our veterans, it's hard for them to watch a war movie or play a war game, because it begins to cause them to experience it all over again. And so one of the things I said to my husband about, getting the help that he needed was one of the things I said was, you served your country, so it's now time for your country to serve you. And so he heard what I had to say. He acted on what I had to say. He took himself to the VA. And not only did he go to the VA, but he also went to the vet center. We were living in Philadelphia at the time. He also went to the vet center to talk to someone about getting therapy. He has now been in therapy for the past 11 years, and it has helped tremendously for him and for our marriage. People may also avoid certain triggers or reminders of the trauma, conversations, places, and thoughts associated with the event. For example, many veterans have strong reactions to the sound of helicopters, firework displays, thunderstorms, humid weather, and sand. One of the things my husband has a problem with is firework displays. So I know that if the 4th of July is coming, we are not going to the firework display. If I want to go, I can go myself. I will not expect him to go, and I will not put him under that kind of pressure. So Helicopters, you know, of course, all the time when they're in Desert Storm or in Afghanistan, helicopters always landing and coming and going. Um, and then thunderstorms, humid weather. Of course, you're in Iraq and Afghanistan, it gets humid and it gets hot, and then there's a bunch of sand. That is not my husband's case, but that is a lot of our veterans' cases. Um, Another example is some veterans from the global war on terrorism often have difficulty driving on American soil, fearing the presence of improvised explosive devices, IEDs is the acronym for it, or roadside bombs, or the enemy nearby. Um, if you, that's the thing, like if I'm reading about these certain triggers. If we know the trigger, we're better able to allow them the time needed to process. Because sometimes something happens. I have a really good example. I was in a car accident. We live in California now, and I was coming home from work late in the evening, and I was going through a traffic light. And at the traffic light, and you know, I had the music going normal, didn't really hear anything. Next thing I know, I'm going through a green light and I'm spinning around in the street. Someone had T-boned me on the passenger side. Thank goodness it was the passenger side. And I'm spinning around, they're spinning around, and we both stop in the middle of the street. What happened after that was, you know, I called my husband, and by the time he got there, it looked like a war zone. You know, they had the yellow tape up, the cars both sitting there after being um, impacted, airbags deployed, and all of that. You know, the sirens going, the helicopters in the air trying to find the person because the person got out the car and ran, trying to find the person. And so you can imagine the lights going. And so for him, it took him about a week or two to get past and process through what had happened. And so for a while, he was having anxiety with me going back and forth to work. Thankfully, now I'm working from home, and both of us have less anxiety. I even got some PTSD from that because whenever I go to cross an intersection now, I'm braking, slowing down, making sure no cars are trying to run through their light. But anyway, like I said, if you know the triggers, you're better able to allow them the time they need to process through whatever happened in that moment or in that moment in time. Um, People often feel numb. You may feel emotionally distant from other people. They may engage in previously enjoyed activities less often. So you're going to notice a shift in your loved one. Whether you were with them while they were in deployment or whether you got married maybe after they came out of the military. We got married after he came out the military. But my most recent experience with him emotionally distancing himself from other people is a most recent experience, which was when he we were going to a friend's house, and this friend is a good friend of his, and they were in Beirut together and all of that. But there are times when he's really not in the mood to be around people. He might be really excited 2 days, one day before, and then that day he said to me, "Well, how long do we plan on being here?" And I'm thinking, okay. And so I could have gotten on the defense. Could have gotten upset. I simply said to him, um, let's decide once we get there how long we want to stay. That worked for him. So he didn't feel bound to be there for hours on end. But I didn't know once he got there, because like I said, they were in Beirut together. Once he got there, he would relax more, and be more laid back because it was just them and us, you know. Um, People may experience increased arousal. They may be irritable and have angry outbursts. He used to do that. We've gotten much better with that because we go back and forth for hours, truthfully saying the same thing, just in a different way. Once we started recognizing that, it was like, okay. And sometimes I'll just, if it's going on too long, I'll just say, okay, let's just stop because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and walk away for some time. And usually we'll come back together, or usually we'll just start talking again about something else, you know. We can't allow ourselves to get so caught up in a debate with them, because sometimes the way they process, as you can see from the picture of the brain, the way they process is completely different from the way we process. So, I mean, it is something that you have to get used to over time, but it can happen. Many of them experience insomnia, which means, problems falling or staying asleep. Um, he sleeps better. I'm not going to lie to you. He sleeps better because of the cannabis before he goes to bed. Um, they may also be hypervigilant. For an example, veterans may sit with his or her back to the wall in public places to be aware of all that is occurring around him or her. That is for sure. And I tell you what, when we do go out, he does want to face the door. He does not want his back to the door, and I honor that. So when we go to places, and I know he doesn't want to, he wants to sit a certain way. So I ask him, okay, well, you sit over here, I'll sit over there. Compromise, and let's enjoy ourselves. As long as he can see what's happening and going on around him, he's cool, you know. They may startle easy. Yes, and that's one thing that I have just started noticing. If I quietly walk into a room, he'll get startled by me walking into the room. It's and so sometimes I make sure I knock before I go in, so he knows I'm standing behind him or getting ready to come in, or I'll clear my throat so he knows I'm getting ready to come in the room. Um, so that's a lot about PTSD, and its side effects, and things that you may be able to do to counteract some of the triggers. Of course, life happens and we can't avoid everything. But when life does happen, such as like my car accident, for a fact he's getting ready to go through a week or two of maybe even pulling away for a while. And in that time is your time for self-care. Allow him to process. You go, enjoy yourself, watch some girly movies, take a nice long bath, yoga, meditate, read, whatever is going to help take care of you. Trust me, he will be okay. He or she will be okay. They will be okay, and you'll get through it. Um, it is my hope that your veteran is getting some therapy or counseling. If they are not, you can use my line. You've served your country. It's now time for your country to serve you. Or you can maybe have a friend or a loved one come in and have a conversation with them about what's going on with them, what they did to get help, and they don't have to feel guilty about getting the necessary help they need. There is a term called survivor's guilt, which means that a lot of our veterans feel guilty that they survived combat and many of their brothers and sisters did not, and they don't feel like they're worthy of getting the type of help that they deserve. So just kind of work through it with them. They're always welcome. You're always welcome to email us at info@hummingbirdhaven.org, and tell your story. My husband is always more than happy to talk to a fellow veteran um, who just needs help, and he's going to be there to help them. So that's more about the veteran. Some I'm going to touch on a little bit right now about the spouse. And I know you've probably seen some things. You've seen this says how the spouse can be affected, or family members can be affected by his post-traumatic stress disorder and end up with secondary traumatic stress disorder or secondary trauma. So as military spouses, there is a study that's happening, and I'm doing some research study myself for military spouses who are suffering tremendously from secondary traumatic stress. And it's can be debilitating at some times. What happens is when a man or woman is in war, what happens is if you, let's say you get a phone call, and the phone call and your loved one is on the other end, and he or she is saying, my helicopter or our plane just crashed, but I'm okay, immediately, regardless of whether they're okay or not, the thought in your head is, oh my God, something could have happened. He could have died. I could have been a widow at the age of 30 or 40, and my children could have could have lost a father or a mother, you know. Um, but for men and women and children, combatants, comrades, and civilians. Besides sleep, a person can also lose their faith and humanity and their ability to feel much of anything. So they at the time of this story, because I'm reading from a story, um, and she was saying that we were supposed to be in the prime of our lives together, experiencing parenthood for the first time with our 6-month-old son. Yet I felt like a single mom. Aaron was trying his best to be a good husband and father, but when it came to being emotionally engaged, he couldn't give us what he didn't have. So, and that's the thing. They don't know how to emotionally be in the moment. And there are times when they're reacting, and even if um, even if they're reacting in a way that seems crazy to us, to them, it is a thing of um, this is the only way they know how to react. It has nothing to do with whether they love you or anything like that. But a lot of women suffer from this um, and it can be debilitating because even I have some signs of STSD. When I'm out with friends and I feel like I want to face the front, or I'm sitting in an audience and people are sitting behind me, I would rather sit towards the back and not the front because I can't see what's going on back there. Um, and this comes from just um, doing it for my husband. Now I'm doing it for myself. My practice is this. I get up every morning. And when I get up in the morning, I come into this space I'm in now, my office, my Zen room is what I call it. And I exercise first thing. Then after that, I do a Tai Chi type of circulation healing exercise. It's called Queen 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 Ching. I forget the name of it, but anyway, or I'll do Tai Chi yoga, and then I'll meditate. This is my practice in the mornings, or I'll do a reading meditation. I'm reading a book right now called Be Water, My Friend by Bruce Lee's daughter. And it's a very good book. It really helps you process through a lot of things, teaches you how to go with the flow, teaches you not to always want to be in control. So it's a good book to have. Um, and the other thing, and so self-care is very important. And if you feel like you are experiencing STSD, I would ask that you seek out counseling or a therapist. Hummingbird Haven is right now in the process of bringing on therapists and life coaches to get our program rolling. So stay tuned. I will definitely have more information about that for you in the near future. Um, but you pretty much can end up going through the same thing as PTSD. You know, um, it's pretty much just hearing someone else's reaccount of a incident, something that really impacted them, something that may be impacting them. As a wife of a deployed soldier, the thing in your head is, are they going to come home? You don't get to talk to them every day, so you don't know what they're going through every day when they're out there in the field. So of course, fear always has you. You become anxious. Sometimes you may even have panic attacks when you hear the news and stuff that's going on over there. It can be a very debilitating thing because now you're eat, sleep, and praying that your loved one is okay. So yeah, sometimes it's definitely good to have an outlet. It's definitely good to have people that can relate to you and you're able to process through it in the time that you need to process through it. But yes, self-care is important. Yoga, meditation, journaling, reading, writing, um, exercise, walking, hiking, whatever you need to do for you in order to process through what you're going through or what you have been through. Support groups, do it. It is very important. So I came across this thing from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and it says what we like our family members and friends to know about living with PTSD. Number one is give me space, and that's in all caps. Give them space when they need to be alone. Don't overwhelm them with questions. They will come and talk to you when they are ready. And some may not come talk to you, but that's okay. Be patient with them, especially when they're irritable. Don't personalize their behavior when they explode or get quiet. It has nothing, and that's the thing I had to learn. It has nothing to do with you. It may be a topic you guys are discussing that really triggers something in them. Okay, if that was the case, then okay, we're getting overheated. Let's step away. It is okay to step away. We as women always want to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's okay to just shut it down. Step away. Go your separate ways. Do you and allow him or her to do them. Um, Learn and rehearse a timeout process. That's what I just said. Don't patronize them or tell them what to do. Treat them with respect and include them in conversations and decision making. Don't pity them. When we're trying to, cover stuff up. I don't want to tell your dad. I don't want to tell your mom. Let them know. They got to learn how to process through things. And this is a way to do it. Um, Don't say, I understand, when there are some things that you just cannot understand. Realize that they have I'm sorry, unpredictable highs and lows. They will have good and bad days. Anticipate anniversary dates, such as Memorial Day, Veterans Day, the date of a bombing, like for instance, Beirut bombing anniversary, um, the day a friend of theirs might have gotten shot and killed in the field. Be aware of those anniversary dates and recognize that these could be some tough days for them, which means Don't overwhelm them on that day. Don't try to get them to do stuff on that day. Just allow them the time that they need to process. Maybe check in and say, how you doing today? I know this is such and such a day, and it might be a tough one for you. How would you like to proceed through this day? I can leave you alone and you could just, have your space, and I'll go do something else. I like to share my traumatic, they would like to share their traumatic experiences with you, but they fear overwhelming you and losing you. And truthfully, my husband still has not shared everything with me. We've been married 12 years. He has not shared everything with me. Sometimes I get to hear what happened when he's talking to his other Beirut friend, and that's okay. I do not push him. I do not force him, because I can't imagine having to recount someone getting shot, someone getting exploded, in front of you. It's 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 not a good thing. So I don't push him to share. If he shares, he'll share. That's it. Um, they want to be close to you and share their feelings, but they're afraid to. And sometimes they don't know how to express their emotions. They also fear that we may judge them. So let them know we are not judging jury. We are here to support them. Know that they still love and care about us, even if they act like jerks sometimes. Now, this is a list they wrote, so um, don't ask them to go to crowded or noisy places because they are uncomfortable in those settings. So yes, you might not always go out to the club. You probably won't always go out to concerts. Those are things that you might not be able to do together. You're welcome to do them, and that's okay. Learn how to do you. Um, and in those moments when, okay, let's go have dinner, that's fine. But try to find a restaurant that's not overcrowded. Let's go to a restaurant that's good. Um, try to go to the restaurant earlier in the evening instead of later in the evening when you know there's going to be a bunch of people around. So those are tips for today. A little bit about PTSD, a little bit about STSD, and some tips about how to know about living with someone who has PTSD. I hope you enjoyed today's topic, and I'm going to be sharing more and more on this topic as we proceed forward. Please subscribe to this channel, like us on Facebook, go to our website, hummingbirdhaven.org, and check us out. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us at info@hummingbirdhaven.org. Again, that's info@hummingbirdhaven.org. It was great talking to you all today. Be blessed.